Hello, how are you? Thanks for choosing this video. There's lots more to come on the channel, so please stick around. Hello and welcome. My name is Richard Simon. I am Cloud Therapist. This is a conference week roundup. We're going to be covering two events that happened in the same week. The two events are the Generative AI Summit in London, or GenAI Summit, which happened at the Novotel Hotel in Hammersmith, and the KubeCon and cloudnativecon event in London, which was held at the Excel Center in Canary Wharf. Now, to help us go through it all, I have my good friend Saim Safdar back as our host. Saim is the CNCF ambassador and host of the Cloud Native FM YouTube channel. How are you doing, Saim?
Hello, guys. Hello, Internet. Thank you for joining us. And it's super nice to meet you once more time. And first of all, I like to thank you for being a wonderful field reporter for KubeCon London for the last 3 days. I know you have been very busy. You're
Yep.
working with you have some customers arrangement in the conference as well. And also there are so many engagement you have on that week as well, but you still managed to cover some time on the podcast on Cloud Therapist and Cloud FM, Cloud Native FM. That's would great because that's where we see a lot of the people who wasn't able to join the KubeCon. They can
Mm,
get glimpses of what the people are talking about there as well.
correct.
But
Yes.
we were speaking about GenAI Summit first, Richard,
Yes.
because I wasn't there. We are talking about all of the things that happened there. But tell us a little bit about, like, I heard about GenAI Summit until
Mhm.
you told me about it. But then I
Mm.
look at the conference website. It's been happening for the last 3 years. Tell
Yes.
us, tell me a little bit about the conference, and also in the same conversation, how it's different from other conferences out there.
Sure. Yeah. So I was actually invited to. It seems to be quite an exclusive sort of gathering, really. But I was invited to the conference by the organizers, so I didn't actually have to pay for it. Actually, you do have to pay a really a really big amount for for the tickets, unless you're potentially the sponsor or something. But I was invited by the organizers, so I do really appreciate that. So shout out to Sam Monco, who's the sales director at the organization that put this summit together. So thank you very much, Sam. Appreciate the invitation. Yeah, so it was, as you said, it was the third time they were actually holding this particular summit. It's called the Generative AI Summit, held from the 31st of March to the 2nd of April, as we said, at the Novotel Hotel, which is in an area of West London called Hammersmith. Um, and the organization is called IQPC, so International Quality and Productivity Center. And they were doing it in partnership with the AI Data and Analytics Network. So it was a bit of a hidden gem, this particular event. I mean, there is, as you said, a number of sort of these kind of AI summits and AI conferences going on and so on. And there's been quite a few of them also held in London. But when I was speaking to Sam, he actually said that the agenda was mostly and mainly made out of just customers, just normal enterprises that are actually working on Gen AI and trying to kind of make use of Gen AI and actually put Gen AI out into their into their environments. So that was really the winning point for me in terms of kind of the distinguishing this particular Gen AI summit from the various other ones. Normally, you get to kind of get a lot of sort of vendors and consultancies and and so on talking about Gen AI. But at the Gen AI Summit, Generative AI Summit this year, it was purely or mainly, anyway, customers. So just normal enterprises, quite large enterprises, albeit, but nevertheless, it was normal companies, corporations, global corporations trying to really sort of get to grips with this generative AI thing and put it into into production and make use of it and get some ROI on it. So yeah, a fantastic conference. I really actually enjoyed it. Listening to all of the talks that were there, and the best thing about it, as we said, was because it was enterprises, so just ordinary customers, and they were actually genuine Gen AI projects. These were actually all being, all started last year. So with the wave of 2024, as the kind of things went crazy after the ChatGPT sort of phenomenon that took off in 2023, 2024 was kind of lots of people talked about 2024 being the year of proof of concepts and pilots. Well, a lot of them are still running actually in accordance with the presentations that were done there. So let me just take you through some of the prestigious speakers that were actually presenting at this conference. The list was, phenomenal. I'm not going to be able to do it justice because actually there was a lot more speakers than the ones I'm going to list out. But let me just list you out some just to give you an idea of the caliber of the presenters. So we had the Chief Data Officer from Financial Times, which is a newspaper, the Exec Director and Group Head of AI for Lloyds Bank Group, the Managing Director and Head of AI and Model Management for HSBC Bank. Paul Donga, I'm mentioning him by name because he was actually a really nice guy that I spoke to and had conversations with afterwards. He is the Head of Responsible AI and AI Strategy at NatWest Group, so another bank. Principal Public Policy lead at Ofcom, which is a UK body for communication and other standards. So they kind of set the standards and keep everybody in line. That's Ofcom. The group head of digital care at Vodafone, so the telco company. CDO at the Open University. They're a remote studying university, kind of a virtual university, if you like. Enterprise AI governance lead at AstraZeneca. So they're a big pharma, as you probably know. Chief AI officer, so one of probably the first people with the actual CAIO title, or CAIO title, I should say. So the Chief AI Officer for WPP, they're a large marketing company, an advertising company. Chief Data Architect at the Post Office, that's the UK Post Office, dealing with all the UK Post and so on. Architecture lead in AI for British Petroleum, or BP, so the large energy company. Head of Model and AI Risk Management at the London Stock Exchange Group, so LSEG, so another really big player. Head of Data-Driven Treasury at Deutsche Bank, yet another bank based in the UK, or German bank, but based in the UK, have a major footprint in the UK. And the distinguished engineer from British Telecom. Now, like I said, there was a whole host more people there, but that's kind of just shows you just a glimpse of the caliber of people that were actually presenting at this conference. So no small kind of, just open source vendors and AI vendors and SaaS vendors kind of, sort of talking about their platforms and solutions. There were a few, like I said, but the majority were these guys. And I think that was the attraction for me about this particular conference. And that was the main difference.
Yes, absolutely. As you mentioned it perfectly well, because when I look at the conference website, I have the same feeling. Like usually some of the conference I'm aware of, and one of the conferences you're talking about after this one is like you are the company who are you're building like the open source version of your tooling.
Right.
Then you have the enterprise offering on top of it. So when you usually go there as a speaker, you need to talk about what the open source solution is going to look like, which of the community members can use it, and you need to tell the adoption curve for this open source tool, and you can tell about your company's perspective, what you have been doing in this space in general. But tell me this about, because the people who are involved in who comes in the Gen AI as an attendees and also presented the session, like what is gonna their messaging or storytelling is gonna look like? Are they telling their solution their company has developed, or they are talking about what the challenges their companies inside are facing, or some of the solution they have built out internally, and they want the world to know about it?
Sure. So that's a great question, and actually, again, the main attraction was because they did all of those things. So they talked about everything. They talked about how they've implemented something already. So those who are actually in production, those who have changed their culture to adapt to kind of Gen AI, and those that were kind of looking at where they can make use of it, and where do they get the best out of Gen AI in terms of return on investment, and how, and what would that look like for them versus other companies, for example. So really, it was a mixture of all of them. And I'll read out some of the actual streams that, and in terms of the topics as well for you in a minute. But that was kind of the main things that were really, like I said, that we're focusing on. And everybody was talking about genuine stuff that they've done. So they were, like I said, at different phases. Some of them were kind of planning and looking at changing their culture. Others were doing proof of concepts and pilots and so on. And those pilots were actually running for a long time, like 12 months plus. Okay. And that actually, in turn, ties up with some of the other survey information and the research information that we've seen from the likes of Gartner as well, where they're talking about, how much Gen AI is in production these days, right, from their survey, and it's less than 10%. So actually, some of the things that I learned and watched the presentations at the Gen AI Summit bore out that information that the likes of Gartner, the research that the likes of Gartner had actually put out. It actually made sense now, because it was kind of corroborating, that information. And then, like I said, the third part of that. So we said those who were kind of researching and preparing, those who were doing the POCs and pilots, and then those who were actually in production. And some of them were kind of in their next generation or second generation projects as well. So they've actually had like a chatbot out already, and now they were looking to enhance that chatbot. So maybe a bank where you're talking to the bank, using WhatsApp or whatever, they're kind of all in, on the WhatsApp business side now. So you'll be talking to the bank using WhatsApp, and you're talking to their chatbot, and you're talking about, a bank loan or insurance, or, or whatever it is, an overdraft or whatever it is about your, account, or, standing orders, whatever it is that you're doing. And then the next generation that they were talking about were things like, it can talk to you about mortgages. It can advise you about savings plans and so on. Obviously, it's within the products that particular bank has available for you. It's not like across the board, but at least if you are invested, or you're in, you're a customer of that particular bank, you can chat to their chatbot about those, very sort of simple things. And then the next generation, second generation of that chatbot will enhance that capability. So they were talking about all, taking that agent, that AI agent, and actually AI agent was, mentioned quite a bit. All of these things were kind of being based around AI agents. They were talking about, taking that to the next level, where it's essentially your financial advisor. It kind of does a basic financial advice for you in terms of savings and, like I said, mortgages and loans and things like that. So they had 3 separate streams. There was one which was based on responsible AI, one which was about infrastructure and architecture. So that was probably the most interesting part for me, because it had a lot of, design and architecture charts and things like that were all being, presented. And the other one was the third stream was around transformation. So how did they change their business, to make it kind of Gen AI ready? How did they change their culture, their teams, enablement, reskilling and things like that? So on the responsible AI, which was stream A, there was, on day one, there was a presentation, for example, about LLM validation and Gen AI governance. So this is about setting standards for risk-free AI implementation. That was by the London Stock Exchange Group, or LSEG. Stream B, which was the infrastructure and architecture, had a presentation on building future-ready organizations. So the essential role of AI infrastructure strategy. This is by Digital Realty, which is a company I think that does kind of data centers and technologies in the data center for customers who are interested in kind of building out their own data centers. Again, stream B, infrastructure and architecture stream, operationalizing AI. So turning infrastructure, data, code, and models into business value. This was by Barclays Bank, which was a really interesting one. And it was quite interesting because they actually gave away a lot of information in that one. Maybe they gave away too much information in terms of their charts and diagrams and architecture, but actually it was a really good presentation. And they showed you exactly how they're using AI in all of those areas, the infrastructure side, the data side, code side, and the modeling side to get business value. Again, on the transformation, so stream C, transformation, there was a panel discussion. So going from hype to high return on investment or high ROI, orchestrating value-driven GenAI transformation. This was by the Post Office, and it was a really good talk. They were kind of discussing, a lot of the issues that they've had along the way, the credibility, the lack of knowledge, and how did they kind of skill up on that and so on. So really kind of, right smack in the middle of the enterprise, middle of a company, and how they're trying to kind of get to grips with this thing that's kind of exploded, all over the, all over the sort of the IT world. And then the other one for day one was, again, stream A rather, which is around strategy. And it was by NatWest's presentation. It was by NatWest. It was on their Cora Plus chatbot. And that's the one I said to you that kind of has gone from, from pilot to production. They talked about it. So Cora Plus is their second generation of their chatbot. So Cora, Cora, is the first generation, and Cora Plus, I believe, is the second generation chatbot, which, as I said earlier, is kind of going to have that, those capabilities, those extended capabilities. So that was day one. Day two, again, lots of really good stuff. There were, boardroom perspectives on Gen AI being discussed. There was, again, all the streams were, quite busy. There was unlocking the potential of Gen AI, practical strategy, and real-world deployment challenges by Philips. This was a really good talk. Again, he talked about real-world sort of problems that they encountered. How did they start? And it was actually very reminiscent, having spoken to the guy afterwards, the guy who presented it from Philips. It was same. It reminded me of how we started public cloud computing, right? How the whole cloud computing started. There were incubation teams that kind of kicked it off, the very core teams that started the projects. There were incubators, within the larger organization. You kind of built up your expertise. You did lots of testing and playing around with the technology. And then you went and presented it to the board and showed the capabilities. So very similar to how we started cloud computing. It was almost like a repeat of that whole process of how we started cloud computing. And that was the interesting thing that I got from the Philips discussion. Another guy, which was also in the innovation and strategy stream, so that was stream B. Again, from hype to reality. This was the company's name was Generali Real Estate. They're an Italian real estate company. So it was their AI-driven insurance revolution. So again, part of that whole process, again, he took us all the way from the beginning to the end of how they kind of, started the process of researching generative AI, having that sort of incubation period, and then, selling it to the stakeholders, selling it to the board and so on, and actually then going on to doing POCs, pilots, and actually implementing it in production as well. So lots of that kind of talk, really good. I believe they managed to record all the sessions. So I'm hoping, although I've not checked it out yet, I'll try and find actually if there's a link online. Hopefully they'll have it all on YouTube somewhere, and maybe we can try and find it, or maybe on the website for the summit. But yeah, very good, very useful. And I had lots of offline conversations with people during the breaks and lunch and whatever as well. It was very well organized. It was all in one place. You weren't getting lost anywhere. There wasn't kind of multiple floors and different rooms. Everything was pretty much close to each other. All the three streams that they had. were essentially next door to each other, all the rooms. So very easy to find, very easy to get around. And all of the presenters were actually there. So you could actually go and talk to them. There was a small showcase area as well. So there was a number of vendors. They were kind of in the, in that sort of AI space, mostly kind of SaaS solutions and consultancies. And again, very good conversations and, made lots of connections in that space as well. So yeah, all in all, a really good summit. Like I said, the practicality of it, the pragmatic approach that they had was probably the highlight for me. And again, it was why I was really attracted to going there.
Usually when I look at the conferences around AI, it's just talk about AI, and it's actually faded away all the different persona that
Yeah.
our application delivery, infrastructure team required to have that.
Mm.
But the way you mentioned this conference is held, we talk about all the different layers of the application delivery, infrastructure management, and then it's talk about the AI, the really relevance of
Correct.
optimizing and enhancing the workflow on the AI. And also this angle of enterprises coming in, talking about the solutions, challenges, what they actually been taking for, and also they are actually and they actually talking about what they have implemented internally and
Yes.
how their AI infrastructure has been built up. That is a really resonated story as well. I hope we can bring in some of those people into into our YouTube channel, so they can give us more insight to what their companies does.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do that and kind of dig into a lot more into some of the stories that they had. And you're right, as I said, it was very much about real life conditions where they've kind of started from last year researching it and things like that. And some of their struggles, the skills shortage that they've faced, the misconception that they faced internally, trying to kind of explain Gen AI to to the stakeholders, the the disbelief as well. So kind of people not really believing in the capability of Gen AI, so they've had to kind of go and do a POC to actually prove it and do like demos and things like that. So all of that was in there. I did ask a couple of questions around data sovereignty, because that was really an interesting area for me. We're kind of picking up a lot of that at T-Systems at the moment. So it's kind of rubbed off in terms of, okay, so what does sovereignty or data sovereignty mean if you're doing, Gen AI, if you're kind of using AI and Gen AI, in your data, in your organization, apart from things like, Microsoft Copilot or GitHub Copilot and what have you, because those are kind of a third party sort of SaaS solutions. But if you're doing Gen AI in your organization, like the Cora Plus, for example, a chatbot from from NatWest, how are they ensuring that their data is kept sovereign? How are they kind of doing data sovereignty, computing sovereignty, operational sovereignty, and so on? Now, for the banks, I think that's not a problem, because the banks are already heavily regulated and whatever, and there's a lot of kind of government entities that will kind of look after this, kind of tick all those boxes already. So that's not an issue. I think sovereignty or data sovereignty is not an issue for the banks. But there were some just kind of, like I said, normal enterprise out there, not sort of in the financial sector. So it's interesting to get their take on it as well. And I think maybe some of them had not actually anticipated this question. So the responses I got were not kind of perfect or to the degree that I expected them to be. Or perhaps somebody else knows the answer to that. The people are actually presenting kind of not aware of the actual details of how things like sovereignty is being handled. So that might be part of the sort of security team or something, and just the person that was there was not aware of that detail. But again, it was an interesting thing to kind of put that out and have that sort of question put out to some of the presenters. Like I said, the banks, I think they all said, yeah, this is kind of sovereignty is kind of part of our GDPR thing, so we already comply with that and part of our regulation in our market sector. But some of the other sort of conventional organizations, I think some of them didn't really sort of have the full answer at the conference. But nevertheless, I think it was very useful to have those conversations, put out those questions, and really get to understand some of these projects that these companies have actually been on. So, for example, I think it was the Cora Plus guys from NatWest talking about the chatbot. They said actually their Cora Plus proof of concept has been running for 12 months. They started it in June of 2024 and presumably it's going to end in June 2025. So, as I was saying earlier about the Gartner research, this is reflecting why we're not seeing, or there seems to be a bit of a backlash or a disappointment on, us, or generally speaking, everybody not being able to see the return on investment on GenAI projects. I think it's because just naturally, organically, these things take a long time to do. You're not going to throw out a chatbot onto the world when you haven't tested it properly and it's not gone through, alignment and various other things, maybe RAG techniques and whatever else that you need to use, to make it work properly. So I think these things just naturally take a long time to do. We can't just get them up and running over the weekend and have it live by Monday. It's just not possible to do that with these kind of platforms, especially when you're interacting with customers, consumers, and so on as well. It has to be vetted and tested very well and aligned. So all the kind of the weights and everything have to be done properly. So that's probably why some of the charts, like I said, from Gartner, put out things like 50-something% of organizations are still evaluating or thinking about Gen AI, whereas less than 10% are actually in production. And that chart is available. Gartner did put that out, so I will make that available in the description of the video. So yeah, that's kind of very much, it was very much kind of shown at the GenAI Summit, and it kind of corroborated, I think, that data that the likes of Gartner have put out when it comes to the small number of ROI that you're seeing in GenAI projects.
Absolutely. And before actually heading to our another conference roundup, just one final question on the Gen AI Summit, because I think this is quite natural to the things we're speaking about today. It's like when we look at the different foundations within the software industry. So let's say if you have a company and you build out some solution, you comes up finding one, or you have solved this one particular problem, but it doesn't belongs to just to my brain, but there is a world around it that is actually been delving these challenges.
Yeah.
You make it an open source project, and that open source becomes a part of your company. And
Right.
then eventually you donate it to some foundations like Linux Foundation or the CNCF side of thing. With the Gen AI, are you noticing same kind of trend? People building open LLM or some capabilities that people can use, and they can actually enhance their workflow on top of what some of the capabilities, let's say your team provided as an open source. Is the same trend happening when you actually been in the Gen AI Summit? Did you notice something like that?
I think my view is, or perspective of what I'm seeing at the moment, is that the likes of Meta and Mistral and all these other players, Grok and what have you, all the sort of players are open sourcing their projects now. Their open source licenses are not like the Linux sort of open source licenses. So some of them you have to kind of really read the small print, as they say, on the on the license to make sure that it's something that you can use in the circumstances that you want to use it. So there's that aspect of it, and then the other aspect of it is it's not really, what they're doing is not really in the same sort of community approach that we have maybe in the open source software world and the cloud native world. So those communities kind of tend to operate differently. There is no Gen AI equivalent of the CNCF, for example. There's nobody that will take a model that's donated by Meta, or take a model that's donated by Grok, or take a model that's donated by Microsoft or Google or anybody else like that, and actually administer that project. So take up the development of that project. So like, I don't know, let's say Llama 3 going to, and I think now they've announced Llama 4. So, that didn't happen at a particular organization. That was actually just done by Meta themselves. So they announced Llama 3, whatever it was last year, and then Llama 4 is now out. They just announced it, I think, this week. So, yeah, there isn't that kind of thing. Everybody's just releasing their own models. And then, like I said, if you want to go and use that, you can, like I said, you need to look at the licensing for it and perhaps potentially use it. So this also goes back to your question, also goes back to how and, what and how you're going to be using as your model. What is the model and how you're going to be using it and implementing it. So, as a financial sort of organization, like a bank or an investment house or something like that, you can afford to go and potentially train your own model. So you can go and buy all the GPUs and the bare metal and stuff that you need, put it all together in your data center, and actually make use of that by training your own model, if that's what you really want to do, right? Because you can go and spend those millions, of pounds to do that. But the other approach is to take a model that's already trained. So the foundational model has already been trained, and then you take it and you customize it, to your requirements. So you do the fine tuning essentially to your requirements, and then you use things like RAG techniques and what have you in order to add, augment it with more latest data as well. So that's another option. And the third option, I think, is that you just go to a SaaS model. Somebody else has got the model. They've already fine-tuned it to your market sector. So that could be, I don't know, manufacturing, legal, health, whatever it is, right? Finance, whatever it is, whatever your market sector is. If they've already fine-tuned it, you might use some RAG techniques or whatever to kind of, make it more up-to-date for your needs. But essentially it's been fine-tuned. So all you need to do is bring your data sets and put them into that model and start making use of that model. So that is a third option. And I think, not everybody can afford to build their own model. Not everybody can train their own model. So that's the training side of this whole sort of chart, if you like. And then there's the so-called inference side, which is where the model's actually now, working, operating and doing something, and it's responding to, to prompts and so on. And that is where things like the second option, as I said, where you kind of bring in an existing or pre-trained foundational model. So what I would call a sort of an AI PaaS or a foundation model as a service, where you'd kind of bring that in and make use of that in your organization. Or as I said, that sort of AI SaaS solution, that third option, where you just take your data into a pre-trained, pre-customized, pre-fine-tuned model. So I think that's the practical sort of, reality of how you implement GenAI. And then there's, like I said, the point where you have to make a choice, where you kind of, deciding which model you're going to do. And those are the three practical options that are available to you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Richard. I think it's AI where you always have a lot of uncertainty, skepticism, and you want to remove it out as well. And that's what we're trying to do with the debate with you, especially when you attended the GenAI Summit as well. But I heard some very things about the conference. I think if people are listening to us or watching this on YouTube, they can go into the GenAI Summit. I think it has a very good details and some very good critique about GenAI in general, and has some enterprising backing. They're telling their customer stories. That's always fascinating to see as well. So I think if anybody is planning out their 2026 schedule, whenever they're actually watching this YouTube video, they make sure they have some plans to attend for the GenAI Summit for 2026, because they have some very good roadmap in their agenda.
Yeah, it was
But
definitely yeah. I mean, like I said, it was definitely a great event, and like I said, the yeah, do check out the link. I'll make the link available in the description. But like I said, the main thing for me, that's the badge I got, by the way. Um,
awesome.
yeah, so but like I said, the main attraction for me and the difference for me was that these were kind of practical, projects that people were doing. These organizations were doing. They were not vendor talking and benchmarks of different AI models and what have you. It was genuine stuff. Hey, if you are enjoying the content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That would really help me out. Thank you.
You have attended the KubeCon London
I
with
did.
one of
I got the
our,
t-shirt, as they say.
absolutely. And I think we need to speak before we go any further. We
Yeah.
should thanks to our common friend Colin Griffin to helping us out for the interviews as well. So, Colin, thank you very much for your
Shout out to
time,
Colin. Thanks,
for
Colin.
all the interviews and all the detail as well. So
Yep.
Colin is the CEO of the Crumware. He helping us out
Yeah.
on all the details. He conducted some wonderful interviews, some very good companies who are actually building out some Kubernetes solution as well.
Yeah.
But also we need to shout out Richard once again, one more time. The city breaks the record of more at
We.
conference.
Woo.
As of there, it is CNCF post is around
Yep.
12,500, but I believe it's more than that.
Yeah.
Is more than that. So that's another wonderful news to hear as well. But you are here. I
Yeah.
was redirecting the conference from virtually. So
Yes.
tell us about to start, or how things you find out, how this conference is different from the other, and give us some your top or top three picks from the conference.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, so first of all, what we're talking about is the live stream. So we actually live streamed on both the Cloud Therapist channel and the Cloud Native FM channel for 3 days from KubeCon London. So that was the Tuesday the 1st of April, Wednesday the 2nd, and then Thursday the 3rd. The links for those live streams will be in the description of the video. Go check those out. That's kind of where we did like an hour and a half for the 3 days and talked to a ton of people. We've done some offline stuff, which will be coming out on Saim's channel as well. So check out Cloud Native FM, subscribe to the channel. He's got some offline stuff, that's offline interviews that we did at KubeCon London. I've got some offline interviews from KubeCon London as well. So lots more material coming out. But if you want to kind of go beyond this review that we're going to talk about now, check out the live streams and then come back and check out some of the other content that we'll be releasing over the next few weeks and months, hopefully. So yeah, so KubeCon London, that's my, show you my badge. So that was the badge for the conference. You can see that, there we go. So the reason it says sponsor on there is because somebody actually was very kind and gave me sponsorship to actually attend the conference. So that was very, very kind of them. I will thank them in the description of the video. You'll see the name of the person. Okay, so yeah, so KubeCon London at the Excel Centre in Canary Wharf, or the East London, east part of London. Excel is a huge conference centre. There were actually 2 other shows running at the same time with us as well. That's how big it is. It's going to accommodate like a ton of other conferences as well. But yeah, KubeCon London, I was really excited for that. And I was really kind of the things I wanted to look at was just to see what was the update in terms of the showcase, who was actually in the showcase, what has kind of changed from Salt Lake City, which I believe was the last one that we saw. And we live streamed that as well. There's also links for that in the description for KubeCon North America, Salt Lake City. So yes, that was kind of one of the things that I kind of wanted to look at. The other one was kind of to see where the platform engineering conversation had gone to. What was kind of where we were at when it came to kind of platform engineering. I heard a lot of stuff. I read lots of articles prior to it, and it went everything from platform engineering is the best to, this is the last chance to make platform engineering work, which was a real shock. I think I sent you the link to that one. I was completely surprised by that. And I actually showed it to Colin as well. And I think Colin seemed to know the author of that particular article. So again, I'll try and drop that in the description of the video, because that was a real shocker. And it sounded like, platform engineering was on its last legs and it was about to fail or something. And everybody was, going to abandon it or something like that. So very interesting, that particular one. And then the third one was, what is the feeling around Kubernetes, really? Is Kubernetes now really boring, as we say in the cloud native sort of circles? Is it kind of still prominent? People still kind of interested in, trying to learn it and, try and implement it and so on. Now, I actually did a sort of a mini documentary, if you like, on my solo segment. So do check that out. There's a video called "What Did Kubernetes Ever Do for Us?" So I take a kind of a different view on kind of where Kubernetes is now, having sort of passed its 10th year of availability or existence. So do check that out. I'll drop the link in the description of this video. So it was kind of these three themes really that I was kind of interested in. I just wish they would really, I should maybe put this at the end, but I'll say it now. I just wish they would really change the name of the conference. I think I advocated for this before. Just Cloud Native Con is really enough. They don't need the KubeCon at the beginning. The sort of, the full name is kind of KubeCon Cloud and Cloud Native Con. And I think Cloud Native Con is enough. That whole CNCF sort of space, yes, started with Kubernetes, and the CNCF was created for Kubernetes, but the landscape has moved on. There are so many other projects there. So really, it makes sense to just call it Cloud Native Con. Again, I keep calling out, for this to actually happen, because it is a lot more than just Kubernetes now. So really need to drop the sort of the KubeCon aspect. As you said, the attendance was a record breaker. I think this is the biggest attendance for KubeCon and Cloud Native Con ever. I'm so glad it was in my own hometown of London that it happened. 12,500 plus people. I think that's on their official tweet, I believe. Saim, is that correct? Cool. Okay, so that is official. The number will probably be revised at some point. They do bring out like a transparency report. I think they do, the CNCF. Okay, cool. Yeah, so we'll have a look at that. Unfortunately, they're scheduling for this particular week when KubeCon London happened was probably not the best because clocks changed on the Sunday morning. Also, Sunday was actually Mother's Day in the UK. So this is a different date from the US, and probably why they didn't pick up on that. Tuesday was April Fool's, so 1st of April, so April Fool's Day. And then Friday, the 4th of April, all the schools in England and Wales, I believe, are actually on half day. So they actually finished at noon or something like noon or 12:30 or something like that, because it's the Easter break. So they actually have a half term of 2 weeks for the Easter break, and they all finished on Friday. And what happens on Friday is that normally people want to get away for their holidays. So people go to Spain or south of the country or north of the country or whatever, fly off somewhere else. So the whole family wants to travel on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So hopefully those people who stayed behind on Friday and sort of leaving on the weekend, there wasn't kind of too much disruption for them on their journeys. So probably not the best week to choose to actually do, hold the conference, but nevertheless, it went really smoothly. The organization for the location and the maps was very simple. So essentially, you had a north hall and a south hall for the showcase. All the breakouts were A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc. They were all located in adjacent halls, so very simple and easy to find. Excel has a massive corridor that you can walk down. And we joked about this on the live stream. We said, even if you turn up on time for a conference, by the time you get to the hall, you'll probably be 10 minutes late because that's how long it is to actually walk it down. There's lots of restaurants and cafes and whatever along both sides of that massive corridor. So you're not going to be short of anything in terms of drinking and eating. So that's fantastic. So they were all very, everybody was very well served. But obviously there was, lunch provided. There were breaks and, during the breaks and coffees and teas and things like that were also offered as well. So lots of really good food was made available. Yeah, so that's kind of the Excel. Yeah, I think everybody, everything was organized very well. There was a keynote theater. The keynote did actually run out of space, so they had to close the keynote, just like the AWS Summit that happened in the same place last year that I was attending, and I covered that as well, by the way, on the channel. So do go check that out. But also the keynotes they had to be closed. So there were security people actually that closed off the keynote theater because it was full.
Absolutely. As you were mentioning that if viewers go into our YouTube channel and they look at the corridor, they will get the feeling how big it was.
Yes.
It's literally too big. And I think KubeCon actually has so much attendees that actually book the whole Excel Center to organize this conference. So you can imagine how many people have been. I'm interesting to see like what is the actual final number that they will be telling us about in the
Yes.
transparency report. I believe my gutsy feeling is more than 30,000 K, 13K, like 13,000. So
Possibly.
my gutsy feeling is that if it stay as 12, 1,500 or 13,000, still, folks,
Yeah.
it's a breaking record because Paris hold, I think, closer to 12,000 number in the last year. And the NA ones is never bring in that kind of attendees, unfortunately, or the stateside one. So the Europe one always the one who actually bring in more people into the conference as well. So it's been great to see. But Richard, we have some news around what been trending, what's been noticing, and you because you actually talk to people in person.
Yes.
We conduct interviews. Those
Yes.
are available on the Cloud Native FM, Cloud Therapist YouTube channel. So I will encourage everyone to go explore their own, and there's more will be dropping soon as well. And also, we might able to bring in some of those guests into a YouTube channel so they can talk about what their organizations see the benefit of attending the KubeCon as well. But one of the number I'm telling you, because both of us quite notices that this notion of observability is a big thing in this KubeCon, in KubeCon London we're talking about. So one of the data is talking about that the organization are grappling with increased complexity, often using 6 to 15 different observability tool, leading to a growing push for consolidation. Research indicates that 54% of companies aim to move toward unified platform to streamline operations and reduce fragmentation. Might be the one of reason of the platform engineering rise. Then the conference in journal talk about how you can leverage the CNCF tooling for the AI driven automation and multiple cloud automation. And also some of the data told that the 96% of organization leveraging at least two cloud and 65% of using more than that, like 3 or 4 cloud as well. But the main key takeaways, then I will get back to Richard as well. The SAP introduces new and Newforce, a groundbreaking platform expected to transform cloud native computing in Europe. That was introduced by some of the companies. And also, this CNCF actually launched a gitjob.dev. If you want to get paid for the open source solution, like if you want to work in open source stuff and get paid job for you, then you can go into the gitjobs.dev and you can find the opportunities there as well. Keynote session, I think they really emphasizes the importance of scalability and community management in the cloud native technology. One of the company, Avisha, I'm home pronouncing their name correctly.
Yeah.
The announcement around the tool they call QBurst. And the Avesha is also a leading full stack Kubernetes orchestration and automation platform. That's how they advertise us, advertising them. And they introduces QBurst, a cloud native solution that enable enterprises to scale AI and GPU workload for on-premise data center instantly, securely, and on demand. That is a, I think I need to keep more eye out on this story from the companies, what they have been doing. Also, the CNCF create crafted golden cubastronaut initiative. Like if you completed all the certification for in the CNCF tooling, all the certification you have been completed, like KCNA, KCA, CK, CKD, CKS, and Cloud Native KCNA. If you completed all those, you are called Cubastronaut. But if you completed all the other certification like Backstage, Kyverno, Open Policy, or like Open Telemetry, all these certification, so then you will become a golden Cubastronaut. So that's a new thing they've rolled out.
Yeah.
There's another similar project I haven't heard. I haven't seen it's existed, but until now, there's an open cluster management solution that is available for multi-cluster management.
Mm.
It simplifies one of the basic challenges that the cluster inventor creating generic APIs that allows to easily deploy cluster anywhere, but still sharing the metadata with the control plane.
Right.
That's interesting. I need
Yes.
to dig it more around that as well.
Definitely. Yeah.
Also, few other projects around Argo Agent.
Hmm.
Argo CD has many projects in this umbrella, and Argo agents come to solve the distribution, the load into the agents running in all cluster, and it's still in early stages, but it has the attention of the whole communities as everybody feels the same pain in the multi-cluster environment. And just last two news, and then I get back to the Richard. Telefoniska, it's a bot that promotes changes to different environment following the rules defined in GitHub's repository. It works only with GitHub, and it's simpler than the enterprise solution that Cargo actually give you as well. And there's one other solution that's really I'm interested in the near futures. Kubernetes GPT is an open source project that runs analysis on your cluster with different AI backends and can define what is wrong and potentially provide solution for it. And let's say if you have solution like, let's say my Argo CD deployment is not starting up, what should I do? Then you ask some question to GPT and it's give you the prompt engineering kind of a solution, and then you can use it for the remediation. That's very much attracted solution to work with. And once again, challenges in cloud computing, cloud native computing, addressing security concern, scalability and performance enhancement, emergence of platform engineering, and the role of AI in cloud native development, and balancing cost efficiency with operational flexibility are the key trends that what I have been articulating through some of the article. But let's go back to the Richard. Tell us, it did the same thing he heard in the conference, or anything you can add into the table.
I think, yeah, I mean, the one that was a surprise you mentioned earlier was the observability and Gen AI. There was a lot of, I think, talks around that and presentations and discussions around that as well. So that for me was a little bit of a surprise, and so it kind of posed the question: if you add Gen AI or AI in general to observability, does that make it AI ops? So that was the question I was asking, and everybody I asked that question of said, "Good question. I don't know." So that was very interesting. The other thing that I picked up on was that the CTO for CNCF, Chris, I'm not gonna butcher the surname. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce the surname. So I'll just say Chris, the CTO of CNCF, was actually the guy who gave the keynote. So Priyanka Sharma wasn't there. So I'm not sure if she's still there. Is she around? I don't know. Is she gone? Not really sure what happened there. So there was that. And also, you and I have been complaining all week about a ticker tape for announcements. We need a RSS feed. It might exist and we're not aware of it. I don't know. But if it does, it's very well hidden. There needs to be like a website page that just gets updated with announcements for, at the from KubeCon, because a lot of the vendors there, all want to make their announcements then or during that week, so they can kind of take advantage of everybody being there and the kind of the buzz around KubeCon and so on. So yeah, take a page out of AWS's book, because at reInvent they did a really good job of that. And we're actually picking up a lot of the announcements at reInvent, thanks to that announcements page. The last one for me was Valencia. So I don't know really in terms of comparisons. Certainly the the London one was a lot better in terms of organization. Like I said, finding your way around and things like that. I spent most of my time, or half of my time in Valencia, trying to find places, trying to find the hall or room or whatever, of the talks I wanted to attend. But all the usual stuff was there. So co-located events, lightning talks were all happening. Again, I'm not sure if there's a difference, and you guys might be able to correct us on this. But the real event, so Chris, the CTO for CNCF, did his a keynote on the Wednesday, not the Tuesday. I would have normally expected the conference to start on Tuesday, and then by sort of Friday, it's kind of all dying out, and you kind of do a half day or something. But this time it was actually started on the Wednesday. At least that's my recollection. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. But yeah, do let us know in the comments, please, if you remember any of the previous conferences starting on the Tuesday rather than the Wednesday. So so we've kind of talked about all the organization and everything. So we were obviously live streaming for 3 days, as we said. We had a ton of guests on. So they ranged everybody from Kubermatic, Nirmata, Aviatrix, one of my favorites. Thank you to Anirban Singh-Gupta, who's their CTO. Really appreciate your time. Thank you for that. So we did he was part of our live stream. Cosmonics, Wasm Cloud, Big Data Query with their Pulse solution, Syntasis, who we spoke to Abby Bankser, Tailscale, Cloud Casa, and various other ones were all on our live stream as well. As we said, we've got all of those available, so description or links in the description of this video, as well as I said, we've got lots of other offline interviews that we've done as well. So Saim's going to sort those out on his channel. I'm going to sort them out on my channel. We're going to release those over the next few weeks and months. I'll also be doing a full review of KubeCon as well, as that'll be kind of my own personal view of the event. There'll be previews and various other things all coming out as well. The other thing that I managed to do was to actually have a conversation with Kelsey Hightower, who's one of the prominent names in these circles. She was actually, I think, working as a tech advisor for a company called Q Labs, CUE Labs. So they managed to, they gave me one of their hats. So thank you very much, Q Labs. Appreciate that. And unfortunately, I didn't have a huge conversation with Kelsey. So hi to Kelsey. Shout out to Kelsey. He was struggling a little bit because he lost his voice. He's been talking so much already, and I actually only bumped into him on the Wednesday, the first day of the live stream, and he was already struggling. So I managed to give Kelsey Hightower my throat lozenges, which was really, I think, probably a highlight for me of actually meeting him and then giving him some of my throat lozenges, and hopefully those helped him out. So yeah, he was suffering, unfortunately, but he was still in good form. He was still there, and he was still working with Q Labs. So the other surprises that I saw were ASML, which is a Dutch semiconductor company. So I was actually surprised to see them there. That was, but it was cool to see them there. And then you had obviously Intel and AMD. The names that were missing, I think, this year were all the vendors, all the hardware vendors. So there was no Dell, there was no Lenovo, there was no IBM, there was maybe HPE. Actually, I didn't check on HPE whether they were there, but certainly all the major vendors um, were not actually there. Maybe HPE was there. Well, Huawei was there, I guess. So that's one thing. But they're not kind of really a traditional sort of hardware vendor. No, I don't believe HPE was there. So there you go. HPE wasn't there either. So none of the hardware vendors were actually there. Whereas I do recall speaking to Dell. I think, did we not speak to Dell at Salt Lake City? I'm sure it was Dell that we spoke to. They had a stand, I believe, in Salt Lake City. But anyway, point being is that was there. There was also a book signing happening. So again, I just stumbled across this, just saw a long queue of people. And I asked what was going on, what was the queue for? And they said, oh, it's a book signing. And I said, okay, what's the book about? And they said, oh, it's platform engineering for architects. So I managed to get my copy of the book signed. So thank you very much to Max, Andreas, and Hillary, the guys who authored it. Hopefully we'll have them on the channel to actually get some talks with them and review the book as well with them. So that was quite cool to do. They were very nice and very accommodating and signed the books, which was quite cool. Yeah, so those are kind of the really the main highlights. I mean, I wish I'd kind of had more time to sit through some more of the talks, but we'll try and highlight some of those favorites that we did attend, myself and Colin. Again, we'll provide some links in the description of this video. Everything else I think was really kind of quite cool about the conference. Everything. There was a very good atmosphere. There was a lot of excitement around AI. Like I said, really glad to see platform engineering kind of maturing in terms of the discussion. So it kind of went beyond just use platform engineering and put it on top of your DevOps, or kind of replace your DevOps with it. Or some people were saying last year, so does that mean DevOps is dead now? And so on. And we've even kind of queried some of that on this channel as well. So all of that was part of the discussion. It was good to see, solutions being discussed around platform engineering, which I think made a lot of sense as well. Yeah, so that's kind of really the main things that I picked up from the conference. Back to you, Saim.
Yes, absolutely. I think during the conversation, when you go into the Centasso booth.
Yes.
Centasso is a company. One of our mutual friend, Abby Bankser, was there, who is actually a platform working group co-chair, and also the platform working group within the CNCF, who wrote 3 white paper on platform engineering or went through transitioning phases in the next few months. And they also said about that the platform engineering is a socio-technical discipline, and people want to talk about it from that angle as well. And that's bringing more value on top of it as well. So that's a very good thing to heard during some of the keynotes they have. And also we have a platform engineering day, a co-located event.
Yes.
Dedicated to all things around platform engineering. We will see if some of the articles wrote around what was the main trend was there, how the platform engineering solving some of the existing challenges we have, and how platform engineering adding more problem to what already is a problem we actually have. So that's also to need to take into consideration. But I think the significant focus was evolving the role of cloud native technologies. I think Kubernetes itself is now into the phase where we love Kubernetes, but we want it to be invisible. As early Richard was saying, like, we need to name this thing something new. Like, we do not call it Kubernetes KubeCon, call it cloudnativecon. And I believe he's right. And I'm also with him, because we don't have conference like LinuxCon I never heard a conference called LinuxCon. It's something else. So
Yeah,
if we talk about
it's the Open
Kubernetes
Source
as an
Summit.
operating,
Yeah, it's the Open Source
yes,
Summit. So it
open.
includes Linux, but other projects that support Linux and are kind of in that Linux ecosystem. And yes, sometimes it crosses over, so you get to see, some of the same vendors and players kind of in that. But it is Open Source Summit.
Yes, absolutely. And that was my same point for the Kubernetes because nobody calling it a Linux con. So might be we need to think about adding it. The cloud native con could be a better than KubeCon because I see the Kubernetes is hidden, is now going away. It's been still there. It will be continues to be with us for a very long time. But in that case, we're not hitting them anymore. We just forget about it, what the below layer is, and we're building solution on top of it as well. So I think that's where we see the industry is heading. So and more of the IDP, Internet Developer Platform, Developer Experience Tool, is kind of a moving that paradigm, making sure those solutions have been heard. So I will look forward to what are some of the new solution that has been showcased in the Platform Engineering Day, and we will look forward to adding those into our YouTube channel in the near future as well. But before we wrapping up the conversation here, for both of these conferences. So, Richard, you can name it. These are the, if we ask few question around what are the intersection and are the unification of these two conferences in a very few words.
Yeah, I mean, I think mainly it's the AI or generative AI aspect of it. That's really seeping through. I think first it was, last year it was more of a panic from the open source and cloud native community in terms of trying to remain relevant in this space. Because as I've said before, and I think we've had the conversation before, AI and general AI doesn't really need open source. It does not need to be open sourced in order to do what the likes of OpenAI have been doing and demonstrating very well, that they do it without, open sourcing their models. You can open source them if you like, yes, but it's still an application. It's not an infrastructure play. The infrastructure doesn't really matter. You can run it on a mainframe if you like. You're going to train your model on a mainframe, if that's what you really want to do. Or you can just run it on bare metal. So you don't really need Kubernetes, you don't need all these other things. Sure, it makes it easier to orchestrate and manage and so on if you kind of containerize your model and train it that way. But open source was kind of struggling to find this position last year. I still maintain there is aspects of that open source is not relevant for, and the cloud native space is not relevant for it. But as I said, OpenAI keeps demonstrating that. Others have open sourced their models, but they have other motives for doing that because they're late to the game and they're being left behind. So Gen AI's kind of aspect is that was kind of the main, I think, concern last year. This year it seems to be now, and I saw a lot of that is how can we bring AI into our existing projects? So as we said, observability plus AI was one thing, and we asked the question: does that mean it's AI ops? The other was around sort of platform engineering. You mentioned the Kubernetes project, which I didn't know about. That kind of you can query the cluster almost and kind of ask it in natural language, and which is fantastic. If this kind of works in the same way as you're describing, I think that's great. That's kind of you talking to a cluster and it telling you what's wrong with it, and then you tell it to kind of go and fix itself, or or to expand to a new node and then spawn these pods in it and these images, container images and so on. And that's be quite cool to kind of operate it that way. So definitely the kind of the cross point is Gen AI for both of them. One point I kind of wanted to just to kind of highlight again was around the area where we saw platform engineering, and like I said, last year it was kind of platform engineering is the new thing, IDP is the thing to do. Whereas this year, I think I saw a lot more diversity in terms of what platform engineering is, how you're going to implement it, how can we take people along on the journey. I think I touched on this on the discussion I had with Abby Bankser as well from Syntasso. We actually talked about going on the journey, taking the customer or taking our teams on the journey, trying to kind of bring in some of those investments that we've done in DevOps, not abandoning that or leaving that behind, and trying to kind of bring that into this sort of newer world of platform engineering. So I've been skeptical of platform engineering. You guys can go and check out, my talks and whatever from last year in regards to really kind of what platform engineering is and how whether it's actually going to be, a force for good. I wouldn't say I'm now optimistic about platform engineering, but having seen the diversity and kind of expanding the conversation, that is what I really wanted to see. I wanted to see that expansion, exploring all those challenges, exploring all those questions and trying to get answers for them. So you could say I'm kind of heading more towards, optimism than my skepticism that I had before about platform engineering. I wouldn't say I'm 100% there, but at least I'm going in the right direction. And that was, I think, the positive thing and the main thing that I really got out of KubeCon London.
Thank you very much, Richard. That is some very good news for me as well, because we are working on the Kubernetes platform engineering side. And I ask my question a lot. Oh, like, is it we are heading toward the good direction, or is it now we actually encapsulating all these ecosystem within the
Yes,
one umbrella term as platform engineering?
exactly. And I think we need to stick to that. So before we close out, I'm going to do the close out in a minute. But let me just highlight one other thing. I just wanted to say thank you to Veeam for doing this. They had a camera that would take your photo, and then you could choose the backdrop of what you want, and they would kind of put you in that backdrop with your head or face, I guess. So this is on the Veeam stand at KubeCon. Hopefully you can make that out. It's kind of me, almost me. I think they made me look more like the actor Ben Kingsley than me, but there you go. But that was a good marketing gimmick, I have to say. Excellent. Okay, well, Saim, thank you very much for hosting. I really appreciate you doing this as always. It's kind of a tradition when we do the live stream, conference, roundups, and what have you. We always kind of have you on, so that's really cool. So thank you very much, as I said, to Saim for doing this roundup. Please don't forget, go and subscribe to Saim's channel, Cloud Native FM. Please check out our live streams, as you said, to KubeCon. We did lots of coverage of KubeCon London, so go and check that out. We'll drop the links in the description of the video. Check out all of the other links that we're going to provide in the description of the video, all the things that we talked about, and then some. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, please. That will be really appreciated. I do want to actually kind of increase the number of subscribers so we can have more diversity in terms of the people in the subscription, so we can actually hold more conversations and do more videos for you. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you next time. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to support me. You may also want to check out some of the other videos on this channel. Bye for now.